What's going on, everybody? Tom here with Black Sheep Keto, and welcome to another recipe video just for you subscribers out there. And if you're not a subscriber yet, please consider doing so. Now today I'm bringing you a recipe for a delicious keto pecan pie. And this one took a lot of crafting because I love pecan pie and I wanted something that was as close to the original as possible. So it's been a lot of failure, but we finally got it right. And that is the recipe that we're bringing you today. Now, I was very hopeful that we would have this out for Thanksgiving, but it just didn't happen. So that is the beauty of YouTube. I can post it now, you'll have it for the rest of the holiday season and all of your Thanksgivings to come. So if that sounds good to you guys, hang on tight and let's get right into the recipe. Alright everybody, welcome to the recipe. Now laid out in front of us here we have all of the ingredients for our pie crust because in order to make a good pecan pie, we gotta have a good crust. So starting over here, we have 2 cups of fine almond flour that we went through and made sure that all the clumps were broken out of. You can do this with a sifter, a food processor, or even a whisk. Just make sure you've broken all the clumps up. Then we have 6 tablespoons of melted butter, 1/4 cup of Lakanto's granular sweetener. This is a erythritol and monk fruit blend. 1 tablespoon of heavy whipping cream, 1 teaspoon of psyllium husk powder. I know this sounds weird, guys, but trust me, this actually really makes the crust fantastic. Without it, it's still good, but we tried this one time and it just turned out absolutely amazing, so that's why that's in there. And then lastly, we have 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now this is optional, but I like having just a little bit more pop to the crust, and I feel like this adds like a nice little touch to it. But that's all of the ingredients going into our crust. So all we're gonna do is combine them all in this bowl and mix it together with a fork. So let's get going. So we're going to add our butter right into our almond flour, followed by the heavy cream, our Lakanto sweetener, our psyllium husk powder, and our little bit of cinnamon. And then just go ahead and mix this with a fork until it starts turning into a dough. Now you probably could mix all the dry ingredients ahead of time, but I find that it really doesn't make a difference. The amount that you have to mix this in order for it to turn into a dough really does distribute those ingredients pretty well. So at this point you can see that our dough does look a little bit crumbly, and that's kind of the idea. When you pack it down, as you can see, it will pack together pretty well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dump this into our pie tin and then use our fork to pack it against the edge of the pie tin in order to form our crust. So I'm going to pull it in a pie tin. Now for this recipe, I am going to be using a disposable one. Feel free to use the glass ones if you want, but these disposable ones are pretty easy to work with. So now I would start with the edges and just kind of start packing these against the edge like so. You're aiming for about 1/4 inch of thickness. Then I like to get in here with my hands just a little bit and push it down to get some of those creases from the fork out, and also just make sure that it's packed real tight in those corners, because there's nothing worse than having a really fat clump of dough in the corner. And just like that, our pie crust is ready. Now I do recommend just taking the fork and popping a few little holes in the bottom to stop it from lifting up when you bake it. And if you wanted to add some decorative detail to the upper edge at this point, you could totally do that by using a fork and doing some kind of pattern like that, or even I've seen people use wine corkscrews. I'm not really going to do one for this recipe, but that's how you would decorate the upper edges. Alright folks, one of the main ingredients in a regular pecan pie is corn syrup, and we can't really have corn syrup on keto, so I found a pretty awesome way to make a corn syrup substitute. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 cup of allulose and pour this into our pan here, and we're going to take 3 tablespoons of water and dump it in there as well. And you're just going to heat this and stir it over like a medium-high heat until it comes to a boil. It will not look too thick in the pan, but trust me, once it cools down, it'll thicken up pretty well. So you'll notice here that kind of thicker mixture we had a second ago, as it's heating up, is starting to thin out, and the allulose is starting to dissolve in that little bit of water that we had. Now, it's still going to look kind of like this opaque color, and it's just not hot enough yet. But as soon as this comes to a boil, we're just going to remove it from the heat, and it'll thicken up as it cools down into that awesome corn syrup consistency. Now hopefully you guys can see here, it's turned pretty much transparent, and we're getting the first little signs of a boil. It's just starting to bubble just a little bit, and that's kind of what you're aiming for. You don't need like a rolling boil, but just hot enough to where it's fully dissolved and starting to turn clear. And then I'm going to go and transfer this into just like a Pyrex dish here, so that it can cool down a little bit before we use it. And as you guys can see here, it's like this nice kind of clear corn syrupy color, and it'll thicken up again as it cools down. Now, the reason that allulose makes a good substitute for corn syrup is it's actually very similar in chemical properties to fructose, although your body cannot absorb allulose, which is why we can use it on keto. But in terms of like its chemical structure and its like taste properties, it's very, very similar to fructose. All right, everybody, laid out in front of us here, we have all of the ingredients for our filling. And as you probably know, a regular pecan pie is pretty much just made with like eggs, butter, and 3 types of sugar, being corn syrup, brown sugar, and granulated sugar. Now, since we can't have those on keto, we've pretty much just substituted them for their keto alternatives and kept everything else the same in order to make this taste as much like pecan pie as possible. So what we have here is all of the corn syrup substitute that we made in the previous step. We have a 1/4 cup packed of Swerve's brown sugar replacement. Then we have a 1/2 cup of allulose here, 1 teaspoon of liquid stevia. This stuff is the stuff that is 24 times sweeter than sugar, so if yours is different, make sure you adjust that accordingly. Then we've got a 1/3 cup of melted butter, 3 eggs, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I know some of you guys like a maple flavored pecan pie. It's not my thing, but some of you do. So if that is the case, just add a little bit of a maple flavoring or a maple extract right in here with it as well. So now what we're going to do is just combine it all in this bowl and hit it with an electric mixer to break up all the clumps, because this brown sugar here tends to clump a little bit. So let's get going. First up is our corn syrup mixture. You can tell here that it's nice and thick as I scrape it out a little bit. It's still a little bit warm. Now when this comes to room temperature, it will be very thick. So it is actually best to work with it when it is slightly warm. Then we're going to toss in our brown sugar substitute, our allulose, our stevia, butter, eggs, vanilla, and the salt. And now we're just going to take an electric mixer and mix this until all the clumps are beaten out. Like I said, you will see clumps of brown sugar, so you really need to make sure those get beaten out. So now we're just going to go ahead and set this aside and bring back our pie crust and about a cup of pecans. Now I'm using the halves. You can use chopped, whatever you feel like. I find that the halves look better in the finished product. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of lay these in the bottom. Fun fact for you, pecans actually float. So with this type of dish, you actually just put them down in the bottom and we pour the filling in. They'll actually float right up to the top. So I'm just going to put these in there kind of a handful at a time. And then I will move them down into a single layer once they're all in there. Alright, so now we have our pecans here at the bottom of our pie crust. And don't necessarily worry about making them look too pretty, because as soon as you pour this in, they're just going to float around and get all screwed up anyway. So that's actually the next step now that I have them there, is we're going to just pour in this filling. Alright everybody, we have our pie here that's pretty much ready to go into the oven. If you look at it, like it's this kind of white color. Trust me, once it bakes, it'll turn to this like kind of caramelly brown color. That's just what it looks like when it's raw. So now, since this is pretty much ready to go in the oven, we're going to go ahead and wrap it in aluminum foil. So I'm going to take a sheet of aluminum foil, layer it over the top, and make sure it's nice and sealed. So I'm sorry if this just messes with the audio a little bit, guys, but basically you're just going to do this. And just like that, guys, our pie is ready to go into a 325-degree oven for 40 minutes. Now, after the 40 minutes, you're going to go ahead and remove this foil and put it back in the oven for between 10 and 15 more minutes. You want it to be just a little bit jiggly when you shake it, but not liquidy. So, time to get this in the oven. We're going to start with 40 minutes, and then once that's done, take the foil off. Give yourself another 10 to 15 more. Alright guys, here's the pie as it came out of the oven. You can see, like, if you give it a little jiggle, there's just a little bit of jiggle left in it. You don't want this, like, really waving. You just want kind of that slightest little jiggle left in there. You'll also notice that there is a little bit of foam on top of it. This will subside as it cools. So we're just going to let this sit here to cool for about, I don't know, 2 hours before we cut into it. So I'll catch up with you guys for the taste test. Alright everybody, now that you've seen the recipe, it is time for our taste test. But first, let me show you guys our finished product. And now that you've seen that, it is time to taste it. So on my plate right here, I have a slice of our pecan pie. It may not be as pretty as the one that we use in the finished product, but it is definitely from the same pie. So now we're going to go give this a taste. Now the first thing that you'll notice is the crust actually does feel like real crust. It doesn't crack or break apart when you're pulling it out of the pan, but when you stick a fork through it, it does cut nicely and it doesn't feel gummy on the fork. But now, let's give a bite. Alright guys, I am not gonna lie, that is an absolutely delicious and pretty much perfect keto pecan pie. Now starting from the bottom, when you bite into that crust, it's buttery, it's flaky, and then it kind of falls apart exactly like you'd expect a crust to do. The filling is about as close to a pecan pie filling as you will ever see on keto because as you saw in the recipe, we just substituted the sugars with their keto varieties and didn't really add or remove anything else. So if anything, it is slightly, and I mean ever so slightly, less sweet than a real pecan pie, but I really don't mind that since we're on keto. A lot of us have developed sensitivities to sweetness, so for me, this is just sweet enough and it's absolutely perfect. And then you have that layer of pecans on the top, which give you that nice pecan flavor, as well as a little bit of a crunch. So to me, this is the perfect keto pecan pie. But with that, guys, I'm going to go and close the video. If you like this video, leave it a like. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section. And if you have not subscribed yet, do me a huge favor, guys. Hit that subscribe button, show some love, and I will see you in the next one.